Hey guys, tonight we're diving into one of the most fascinating traditions that survived over 2,000 years. From ancient demon-fighting rituals to the biggest digital money transfer phenomenon on the planet. We're talking about Hongbao, those little red envelopes that somehow evolved from supernatural protection into a multi-billion-dollar WeChat frenzy during Chinese New Year. Trust me, this journey is wild. You've got demons, imperial intrigue, communist crackdowns, and tech giants literally throwing money at people to win market share. It's like someone combined folklore, economics, and a Las Vegas casino into one tradition. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is in your city right now. I love seeing this community spread across time zones from New York to Singapore, all settling in for the same story. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a small village somewhere in ancient China, probably around the Han Dynasty. We're talking roughly 200 BCE here. It's New Year's Eve, and you're not thinking about fireworks or dumplings or lucky money. You're thinking about survival. Because tonight, there's something outside your door, and it wants your children. The villagers call it Sui, which literally means year, but also sounds identical to the word for a particular type of demon. This isn't your friendly neighborhood spirit. According to the legend that's been passed down through countless generations, Sui is a creature that emerges specifically on New Year's Eve with one goal: to touch the heads of sleeping children. And when it does, those kids don't just get a headache. They wake up with fevers, seizures, brain damage. Some don't wake up at all. You can imagine the terror parents felt during a time when medicine meant drinking herbal tea and hoping for the best. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You don't have hospitals, you don't have antibiotics. What you do have is desperation and a growing collection of folk remedies that may or may not work. The villagers have tried everything, hanging peachwood charms, burning incense, staying up all night to guard the children. Nothing seems to consistently work. Historians still debate whether these stories originated from actual seasonal illnesses that affected children, like encephalitis or meningitis that might have spiked during winter months, or whether it was purely mythological from the start. Either way, the fear was absolutely real. Then one New Year's Eve, you hear about a family who discovered something. Their child was sleeping, and they'd placed 8 copper coins on a red piece of paper near the pillow, maybe as an offering, maybe just as a decoration. That night, Sui came. The demon approached the sleeping child, but the moment it got close, the coins started glowing with a brilliant golden light. The demon shrieked and fled. The child woke up perfectly healthy. Word spreads like wildfire through the village networks. 8 coins, red paper. That's it. That's the formula. And suddenly, every household is doing the same thing. You're wrapping coins in red paper, tucking them under pillows, calling them Yasui Qian, literally, money that suppresses Sui. The tradition of Hongbao, red envelopes or red packets, has just been born, though it doesn't look quite like what you'd recognize today during Chinese New Year celebrations. Here's a weird detail that often gets overlooked. Why 8 coins specifically? In Chinese culture, the number 8 sounds like the word for prosperity and wealth, but that linguistic connection came later. Some folklore scholars think the original 8 coins might have represented the 8 immortals from Taoist mythology, supernatural beings who could protect children. Others argue it was simply because 8 was considered a complete, balanced number. The academic debate continues, and honestly, the ancient villagers probably weren't thinking too hard about the symbolism. They were just trying to keep their kids alive. You're living in a world where the line between the spiritual and physical realm is basically non-existent. When a child gets sick, you don't blame viruses or bacteria. You blame demons, bad luck, improper offerings to ancestors. or your neighbor's curse. The Hongbao tradition fits perfectly into this worldview. It's transactional spirituality. You give the demon something valuable, money, wrapped in an auspicious color, red, which represents fire, life, and good fortune. And in exchange, the demon leaves your family alone. Fast forward a few generations, and this demon-fighting strategy has become so embedded in New Year traditions that people are doing it even if they don't fully believe in Sui anymore. It's like how you might knock on wood or avoid walking under ladders. Sure, you're a rational person, but why take chances? The Hongbao has transformed from emergency supernatural defense into a cultural reflex, something you do because that's what Chinese New Year is supposed to involve. But here's what makes this tradition genuinely remarkable. While the demon story fades into folklore and legend, the practice itself doesn't just survive, it evolves. Those 8 coins wrapped in red paper are about to go on a 2,000-year journey through imperial dynasties, political revolutions, economic transformations, and ultimately into your smartphone. The Hongbao you tap on WeChat during Chinese New Year, trying to grab a few yuan from a group chat, can trace its lineage directly back to these terrified parents clutching copper coins and praying their children would survive the night. You're witnessing the birth of one of the world's most enduring gift-giving traditions, and it started with a demon who really needed to be bribed to leave kids alone. You're still in ancient China, and the Hongbao tradition is catching on faster than anyone expected. But here's the thing about folk remedies that supposedly work. They immediately start getting complicated. Because now it's not just about whether you put coins under your kid's pillow. It's about which coins, how many, what kind of paper, and whether you're doing the whole ritual correctly. Welcome to the anxiety of traditional Chinese parenting, where even demon protection comes with a steep learning curve. Let's get specific about what you're actually doing on New Year's Eve. You've got your copper coins, ideally ones that are freshly minted, because apparently demons have standards and won't be impressed by worn-out currency. You're taking a piece of red paper, and not just any red paper. It needs to be bright, vibrant red, the color of blood and fire and life itself. In Chinese cosmology, red is yang energy, the active, warm, masculine force that drives away yin darkness and cold. Demons, being creatures of shadow and death, theoretically can't stand it. You're carefully wrapping these coins, and here's where families start developing their own variations. Some parents thread the coins onto red string, creating a sort of necklace that the child wears. Others fold the paper into elaborate pouches. The wealthier families might use silk instead of paper. And everyone's convinced their method is the correct one, leading to the kind of neighborhood debates that would make modern parenting forums look calm and rational. The number of coins matters too, and this is where things get delightfully superstitious. 8 coins remain popular because of that 8 immortals connection, but you've also got families using 6 coins because 6 sounds like smooth or flowing, or 9 coins because 9 sounds like long-lasting. Some regions prefer even numbers for good luck, while others insist odd numbers are luckier. Historians and anthropologists still argue about which tradition came first and why different regions developed completely contradictory beliefs about the same practice. Now, here's a genuinely weird historical detail that most people don't know. The coins themselves sometimes had holes in the center, and parents would thread them onto red string in specific patterns. These weren't random arrangements. Certain families believed the pattern created a kind of spiritual circuit that amplified the protective power. It's basically ancient China's version of conspiracy theorists believing that arranging crystals in geometric patterns creates energy fields. Except this version actually became a mainstream cultural practice that lasted centuries. You're tucking these prepared coins under your child's pillow as night falls on New Year's Eve. The whole family is awake because staying up all night is part of the protection strategy. Your shu sui, literally guarding the year. You're keeping vigil, making sure Sui doesn't catch anyone off guard. There's food everywhere, candles burning, and you're probably exhausted but also too paranoid to sleep, because what if this is the one year the coins don't work? The psychology here is actually fascinating. You're participating in what anthropologists call apotropaic magic, rituals designed to turn away evil. Every culture has versions of this. Europeans had garlic for vampires, iron for fairies, salt circles for demons. Chinese culture had red paper and coins for Sui. What makes the Hongbao version interesting is that it's simultaneously a gift to the demon, here's some money, now leave us alone, and a weapon against it. The red color and metallic energy of coins repel evil. It's defensive and offensive at the same time. But let's talk about what happens when your kid wakes up healthy on New Year's Day. You're flooded with relief, obviously. But you're also now convinced that the ritual worked. This is confirmation bias at its finest. When the child stays healthy, the coins get credit. When a child does get sick despite the coins, well, clearly someone messed up the ritual, or the coins weren't genuine enough, or a window was left open, or 1,000 other variables. The tradition becomes self-reinforcing because it's unfalsifiable. As decades pass and the practice spreads across China, you start seeing regional variations that are genuinely bizarre. In some areas, parents put the coins in the child's shoes instead of under the pillow. In others, they hide coins around the house, turning New Year's Eve into a treasure hunt where finding money equals finding protection. Certain villages develop elaborate ceremonies where the eldest family member personally hands coins to each child while reciting specific phrases or blessings. The coins themselves start carrying additional meaning beyond demon protection. You're now living in a society where these Yasuiqian coins become the child's first experience with money, with receiving gifts, with understanding that they're valued members of the family. The tradition is evolving from pure supernatural defense into something more complex. A social ritual that reinforces family bonds, teaches children about luck and prosperity, and marks the transition from one year to the next. Here's something scholars still debate. Did the protective aspect come first, or was it always partially about giving children money and the demon story was just a convenient explanation? Some historians argue that Yasuiqian was originally a straightforward gift-giving practice, and the Sui demon legend was added later to make it more meaningful. Others insist the supernatural protection was absolutely the original purpose. The evidence is murky because we're talking about folk traditions that existed primarily in oral form for centuries before anyone bothered writing them down. What's not debatable is that by the time we reach the later dynasties, you've got a practice that's firmly embedded in Chinese New Year celebrations. Those 8 copper coins under the pillow have become non-negotiable. You're not just doing it because you believe in demons anymore. You're doing it because it's tradition, because your parents did it, because not doing it feels wrong and unlucky and like you're tempting fate. You're clutching those coins wrapped in red paper, your child is sleeping peacefully, and you don't fully know whether you're protecting them from supernatural evil or just participating in an elaborate cultural performance. But honestly, in that moment, with incense smoke filling the room and the sound of distant firecrackers marking the new year, the distinction doesn't really matter. The Hongbao has successfully transitioned from emergency demon defense to cultural institution, and it's about to get even more complicated. You're jumping forward several centuries now, landing right in the middle of the Qing Dynasty. We're talking roughly 1644 to 1912, the last imperial dynasty before everything goes completely sideways in China. In the Hongbao tradition, it's evolved so far beyond demon protection that you'd barely recognize it. You're now dealing with an intricate social currency system where the amount of money in that red envelope can literally determine your family's reputation for the entire year. Picture this. You're a mid-level official in the Qing bureaucracy, and Chinese New Year is approaching. You're not worried about demons anymore. You're worried about your boss, your colleagues, your servants, your distant relatives, and the complex web of social obligations that could bankrupt you if you're not careful. Because Hongbao has transformed from a protective charm into a mandatory gift exchange that operates on rules so complicated they'd make modern tax code look simple. The Qing Dynasty elite took the basic concept of yasui xian and turned it into performance art. You're now wrapping coins, or increasingly actual paper money, in red paper that's decorated with gold characters, auspicious symbols, drawings of dragons and phoenixes. The presentation matters almost as much as the content. Wealthy families commission custom-designed red envelopes from specialized craftsmen. There are Hongbao made from silk, embroidered with elaborate patterns, sealed with wax stamps bearing family crests. This isn't just giving money anymore. It's displaying wealth, taste, and social standing. Here's where things get genuinely stressful. The amount you give is a public statement. You're operating in a society where face, social reputation, is everything. Give too little to someone important, and you've insulted them. The gossip spreads through your social network faster than you can apologize. Your family's reputation takes a hit. Business opportunities dry up. Give too much to someone of lower status, and you're either showing off, which is tacky, or suggesting they need charity, which is insulting. The calculation required is exhausting. The Qing court itself institutionalized certain Hongbao practices. We're an imperial official, and the emperor is distributing Hongbao to his favorites during New Year celebrations. These aren't symbolic amounts. We're talking envelopes containing enough silver to buy a house. Receiving one of these imperial Hongbao isn't just about the money. It's a public signal that you're in the emperor's good graces. It affects your career trajectory, your marriage prospects, your entire future. Historians have documented cases where officials obsessively tracked who received what amounts, analyzing the emperor's intentions like ancient political consultants. But let's talk about what happens when you're not imperial nobility. You're a merchant family in Guangzhou or a landowning family in Sichuan, and you've got your own Hongbao obligations. Children in the family expect them from every adult relative. Your servants expect them as part of their compensation package. Business partners exchange them as a way of maintaining relationships. There's even a practice of giving Hongbao to your sedan chair carriers, street vendors you regularly buy from, the temple monks who pray for your family's prosperity. The amounts follow unwritten but strictly observed rules. You're giving more to your own children than to nephews and nieces, more to older children than younger ones. Wait, no. Actually, some families do the reverse because younger children are more innocent and deserve extra luck. More to children of higher status relatives than lower status ones. The mental calculations never stop. Families literally keep ledgers tracking who gave what to whom in previous years because you need to maintain consistency and show appropriate increases over time. Here's a detail that absolutely blows my mind. Some wealthy Qing families developed a practice called yasui qianchuan, where they'd string together dozens or even hundreds of coins on red thread to create elaborate decorative pieces. These weren't meant to be spent. They were displays of wealth and good wishes that would be hung in the house throughout the year. You're basically turning money into art installations, and the more elaborate your display, the more prosperous your family appears. Scholars still debate whether this practice actually helped social cohesion or just reinforced class divisions. On one hand, you've got a tradition that requires wealthy families to distribute money downward to servants and lower status relatives, creating a kind of seasonal wealth redistribution. On the other hand, the amounts given were often token gestures that emphasized the power differential rather than alleviating it. An imperial official giving his servant a Hongbao with a few copper coins isn't changing that servant's life. It's reminding them of their place in the hierarchy. The religious aspect hasn't disappeared entirely, but it's been layered over with so much social meaning that you're not really thinking about demons when you hand someone a red envelope. You're thinking about whether the amount is appropriate, whether the envelope's quality reflects well on your family, whether you're maintaining or improving your social position. The original protective magic has become almost incidental, a quaint backstory to what's now primarily an economic and social ritual. Regional variations during the Qing period get wonderfully specific. In Beijing, you're expected to give Hongbao on New Year's Eve specifically. In southern coastal regions, the practice extends throughout the entire first month of the lunar year. Some areas develop traditions where children perform specific greetings or recite poetry before receiving their Hongbao, turning it into an educational exercise. Others maintain that Hongbao should be given wordlessly, with the envelope doing all the talking. You're also starting to see the first instances of Hongbao etiquette rules that will persist into the modern era. Never give amounts ending in 4, because 4 sounds like death. Always give new, crisp bills when possible. Giving worn, dirty money is considered disrespectful. The envelope should never be opened in front of the giver because that's considered greedy and tacky. These rules aren't written down anywhere officially, but everyone somehow knows them, and violating them causes genuine social awkwardness. Here's something that gets overlooked in most Hongbao histories. Inflation during the later Qing period made the whole system occasionally ridiculous. You're trying to maintain traditional giving amounts while the currency is fluctuating wildly due to economic instability, foreign trade, and political chaos. Some families stubbornly keep giving the same number of coins their grandparents gave, even though those amounts now buy basically nothing. Others try to adjust for inflation and get accused of either showing off or being cheap, depending on how the adjustment lands. By the end of the Qing Dynasty, you've got a tradition that's simultaneously about childhood protection, family bonding, social hierarchy, economic exchange, and cultural performance. The Hongbao has become so embedded in Chinese New Year celebrations that not participating is basically unthinkable. You're locked into a system that's equal parts gift-giving and social warfare, wrapped up in red paper and tied with ancestral expectations. You're living through the late Qing and early Republican period now, and Hongbao is officially everywhere. It's not just an upper-class practice anymore. It's penetrated every level of Chinese society, from peasant villages to urban commercial centers. And with that democratization comes something absolutely inevitable: an explosion of social anxiety about doing it correctly. Welcome to the era where red envelopes become the most anticipated, most stressful, and most socially significant part of Chinese New Year. Let's set the scene. You're an ordinary urban family in Shanghai around the 1920s or 1930s. Chinese New Year is approaching, and you're already calculating your Hongbao budget months in advance. This isn't optional gift-giving. This is mandatory social participation. You've got children expecting envelopes from parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and family friends. You've got younger relatives expecting them from you. You've got your children's teachers, your household staff if you're fortunate enough to have any, and a network of social obligations that extends further than you'd like. The etiquette has crystallized into specific rules that everyone seems to know instinctively, even though nobody's written an official handbook. You're giving Hongbao to anyone younger than you in the family structure. Children, obviously, but also unmarried younger cousins, younger siblings, younger colleagues. The moment someone gets married, they flip from receiver to giver, regardless of age. This creates fascinating situations where a 20-year-old married person is giving Hongbao to their 40-year-old unmarried aunt, and everyone just accepts this as normal. Here's where the mathematics get genuinely complex. You're calculating amounts based on multiple variables simultaneously: your relationship to the recipient, your relative income levels, what you gave last year, what they gave your children, regional expectations about appropriate amounts, and the symbolic meaning of specific numbers. It's like a multi-dimensional spreadsheet that you're running in your head while maintaining a cheerful New Year's demeanor. The numbers themselves carry freight beyond their monetary value. You're never, ever giving amounts with the number 4 because it sounds like death. This isn't superstition you can ignore. It's social law. 8 is lucky because it sounds like prosperity, so amounts ending in 8 are popular. 6 is smooth and flowing. 9 is long-lasting. But you also can't be too obvious about chasing lucky numbers, because that seems desperate and tacky. The ideal Hongbao amount is lucky but not showerly. So generous but not excessive, appropriate to your relationship but also surprising enough to seem heartfelt rather than obligatory. Regional differences during this period are absolutely wild. In Guangdong province, you're expected to give Hongbao to literally everyone you encounter during the New Year period. The doorman at your building, the person delivering your groceries, street performers, anyone providing a service. In northern regions, the practice is more restricted to family members and close friends. In some rural areas, the amounts are tiny, but the ritual of giving and receiving is elaborate and formalized. In urban centers, amounts are larger, but the exchange might be quick and casual. Now let's talk about the envelopes themselves, because they've become an art form. You're not just wrapping money in red paper anymore. Specialized shops sell pre-made red envelopes with gold printing, auspicious phrases like Gong Xi Fa Kai, congratulations and be prosperous, or Mo Shi Ru Yi, may all your wishes come true. Images of the zodiac animal for that year, intricate patterns and designs. Wealthy families commission custom envelopes. There's a whole industry built around Hongbao packaging now. The paper quality matters. Cheap, thin paper suggests you're cheap or don't respect the recipient. Too fancy and elaborate suggests you're showing off. You're looking for the sweet spot of quality that signals respect without ostentation. And the envelope must be clean, unwrinkled, pristine. Giving a crumpled or dirty envelope is considered genuinely offensive, like you couldn't be bothered to care about the recipient. Here's a practice that emerges during this period and still causes debate among etiquette experts: the sealed versus unsealed Hongbao. In some families, you're expected to seal the envelope, making it clear the recipient shouldn't open it in front of you. In others, leaving it unsealed is preferred because it shows you have nothing to hide about the amount. Different regions have different standards, and when families from different areas intermarry, there are actual arguments about the correct approach. Children during this era develop sophisticated strategies for maximizing their Hongbao haul. You're teaching kids to greet every relative with specific New Year's blessings. Gong Xi Fa Kai, wishing you prosperity. Shen Ti Jian Kang, wishing you good health. Nian Nian Yu Yu, wishing you surplus every year. The better and more enthusiastic the greeting, theoretically, the more generous the Hongbao. Smart kids develop rankings of which relatives are the most generous and prioritize visiting them first. But here's something genuinely interesting that historians have documented. Hongbao during this period often functioned as a way for families to move money to women and children who otherwise had limited financial independence. You're living in a patriarchal society where women often didn't control household finances directly. But Hongbao money given to wives and daughters was considered their personal property. It created a small space of financial autonomy within restrictive social structures. The amounts people give start reflecting broader economic conditions. You're navigating periods of inflation, currency instability, economic depression, and regional variation in prosperity. In wealthier coastal cities influenced by foreign trade, Hongbao amounts inflate rapidly. In rural interior regions, traditional amounts persist even as their purchasing power declines. This creates awkward situations when relatives from different economic contexts exchange Hongbao and the amounts don't match expectations. There's also an emerging practice of workplace Hongbao. You're an employee, and your boss distributes red envelopes during New Year celebrations at the office. These aren't just bonuses. They're performative gestures of benevolence that reinforce hierarchy, while also functioning as actual compensation. Employees compare amounts obsessively, trying to divine what the different amounts mean about their standing with management. Its annual review season disguised as festive tradition. Academic researchers still argue about whether the Hongbao tradition strengthened or weakened during the Republican period. Some point to increased commercialization and standardization as evidence it was becoming more superficial. Others argue that wider participation across economic classes meant the tradition was actually becoming more democratic and culturally significant. The truth is probably that both things were happening simultaneously. Hongbao was becoming both more widespread and more complicated. You're also starting to see the first instances of people genuinely resenting the practice. There are complaints in newspapers and magazines about the financial burden of Hongbao obligations. Essays arguing that the tradition has become corrupted, that it's now about showing off wealth rather than expressing genuine good wishes. Proposals for reform, suggesting standardized amounts or even eliminating the practice entirely. None of these critiques gain serious traction because the tradition is too deeply embedded, but they reveal growing tension between cultural obligation and personal financial stress. By the time we reach the mid-20th century, you've got a practice that's simultaneously beloved and burdensome, anticipated and anxiety-inducing, traditional and evolving. Children eagerly await their Hongbao haul. Adults strategically calculate their giving budgets. Everyone participates while simultaneously complaining about the pressure to participate. The red envelope has become a perfect symbol of Chinese New Year itself. Joyful and stressful, generous and transactional, ancient and modern all at once. You're stepping into the chaotic early decades of the Republic of China now. Roughly 1912 through the 1940s, and everything about Chinese society is in flux. Dynasties have fallen, foreign powers are carving up spheres of influence, warlords are fighting each other, and the country is lurching between moments of modernization and complete upheaval. And somehow, through all of this chaos, you're still expected to give Hongbao at Chinese New Year. Except now, the tradition itself is becoming a statement about who you are and what you believe. Let's talk about the money situation first, because it's genuinely absurd. You're living through a period of massive currency instability. Different regions use different currencies. Warlords mint their own coins. Foreign silver dollars circulate alongside traditional copper cash. The actual value of money fluctuates wildly depending on where you are and what political faction controls your area. And you're supposed to give Hongbao in this environment. Good luck. You're a parent in Beijing and you've saved up silver dollars to put in your children's Hongbao. By the time Chinese New Year actually arrives, those silver dollars might be worth significantly more or less than when you started saving. In some regions, people start giving Hongbao in goods instead of currency. Little packets of tea, small gold ornaments, IOUs for future services. The red envelope remains, but what's inside has become negotiable based on economic reality. Here's where things get politically interesting. You're living in a time when Chinese intellectuals are questioning everything about traditional culture. There's a whole movement, the New Culture movement, arguing that China needs to abandon outdated customs and embrace modern, Western ideas. And Hongbao, it's right in the crosshairs. Progressive intellectuals write essays calling it a feudal practice that reinforces hierarchy and wastes money that could be invested in education or industry. Some families respond to this critique by continuing the tradition but reframing it as educational. You're now giving Hongbao, accompanied by lectures about saving money, about the value of hard work, about modern economic principles. Children are expected to deposit their Hongbao money in banks, which are becoming more common in urban areas, rather than spending it frivolously. The tradition survives by adapting its justification from supernatural protection to financial education. But here's the reality. Most families completely ignore the intellectual criticism and keep doing what they've always done. You're a shopkeeper in Guangzhou or a farmer in Sichuan, and you don't care what some newspaper columnist in Shanghai thinks about the social implications of red envelopes. It's Chinese New Year. You're giving your kids Hongbao. End of discussion. The tradition proves remarkably resilient precisely because it operates at the grassroots family level rather than requiring official institutional support. The 1920s and 1930s see the emergence of what we might call Hongbao inflation in urban centers. You're competing with neighbors and relatives in cities where wealth disparities are growing rapidly. Merchant families and those connected to foreign trade are suddenly much wealthier than traditional landholding families. The amounts in Hongbao start reflecting these new economic hierarchies. In Shanghai's foreign concessions, you've got families giving astronomical amounts by traditional standards, turning Hongbao into displays of cosmopolitan wealth. Regional warlord politics create bizarre situations. You're living in a region controlled by a particular warlord, and that warlord's government issues its own currency. When relatives visit from a region with a different warlord, and therefore different currency, the Hongbao exchange becomes a currency exchange problem. Do you convert amounts based on official exchange rates or black market rates? Do you give in the recipient's currency or your own? These aren't hypothetical questions. Families genuinely navigate these issues. Here's a practice that emerges during this period and shows the tradition's adaptability. Hongbao by mail. You're part of the massive Chinese diaspora communities forming in Southeast Asia, the Americas, Australia. You can't physically be with family during Chinese New Year, but you're still expected to send Hongbao to younger relatives back home. So you're mailing money in red envelopes across oceans, sometimes including letters with New Year's greetings, sometimes just the cash. It's an early version of what will eventually become digital Hongbao, maintaining family connections across vast distances. The Sino-Japanese conflicts and eventually full-scale war in the late 1930s and 1940s devastate the tradition in occupied areas. You're living under Japanese occupation, the economy has collapsed, and Hongbao seems impossibly frivolous when your family is worried about basic survival. In some areas, the practice nearly disappears. In others, families stubbornly maintain it with whatever currency or goods they can scrape together, turning Hongbao into an act of cultural resistance. We're still Chinese. We're still celebrating our traditions. Occupation be damned. Refugee communities fleeing the war bring Hongbao traditions to new locations. You're a family that's escaped to Chongqing or Hong Kong or further abroad, and maintaining Chinese New Year traditions becomes a way of preserving identity in exile. The Hongbao you give in a refugee camp might contain almost nothing of monetary value, but the red envelope itself becomes symbolically crucial, a tangible link to the life you left behind and hope to return to. Historians still debate how much the Republican period fundamentally changed versus merely disrupted the Hongbao tradition. Some argue that the introduction of paper currency, banking systems, and modern economic concepts transformed what the red envelope represented. Others contend that the core social function, expressing family bonds, marking generational relationships, transferring wealth downward, remained fundamentally unchanged, regardless of political and economic chaos. What's not debatable is that inflation during this period makes the amounts genuinely difficult to track historically. You've got records showing families giving 100 yuan in Hongbao one year and 10,000 yuan the next, but without understanding the inflation rate and currency changes, those numbers are almost meaningless. It's like trying to compare prices across centuries without accounting for economic context. The practice of giving Hongbao to teachers becomes more standardized during this era. You're a student, and your parents are expected to give red envelopes to your teachers during New Year visits. This isn't technically a bribe, it's a cultural practice. But the line is blurry enough that some schools try to ban it. The bans are universally ignored because parents fear their children will be treated worse if they don't participate, and teachers have come to expect it as part of their compensation. You're also seeing the first mass-produced commercial red envelopes. Small printing shops start creating standardized designs that anyone can purchase. This democratizes the tradition, You no longer need to commission custom envelopes or make them yourself. But it also creates new anxiety. Is giving a generic, store-bought envelope less thoughtful than a handmade one? Different families have different opinions, and there's no consensus. By the time we reach the end of this Republican era, and the Communist Revolution is approaching, you've got a Hongbao tradition that's been battered by war, inflation, political upheaval, and intellectual criticism, but has somehow survived all of it. The amounts have changed, the currency has changed, the justifications have changed, but those red envelopes are still being exchanged every Chinese New Year. The tradition has proven it can adapt to almost anything. Except what's coming next is going to test that adaptability in ways nobody anticipated. You're living through 1949 and everything changes. The Communist Party takes control of mainland China, and suddenly you're in a society that's officially dedicated to eliminating feudal superstitions and bourgeois practices. And guess what falls directly into both categories? Your beloved Hongbao tradition. You're about to witness one of history's most interesting experiments. Can a government actually kill a cultural practice that survived for over 2,000 years? The new government's position is pretty clear from the start. You're being told that Hongbao represents everything wrong with the old society. It's superstitious nonsense about demons, it reinforces class hierarchies, it encourages wasteful spending instead of productive investment, and it distracts workers from building socialism. Party officials give speeches condemning the practice. Schools educate children about the backwardness of traditional customs. There's genuine pressure to abandon Hongbao entirely. Here's where it gets fascinating. The government doesn't actually ban Hongbao outright, at least not initially. They're smarter than that. You're living in a totalitarian state that understands directly prohibiting beloved family traditions would create resentment. Instead, they pursue what we might call cultural pressure. Work units, your Danwei, which controls basically every aspect of urban life, strongly discourage the practice. Communist Party members are expected to set an example by not participating. Public criticism sessions sometimes target people who give elaborate Hongbao as engaging in capitalist excess. But you're a regular family trying to navigate this new reality, and you're caught between political pressure and cultural obligation. Do you stop giving Hongbao to your children and risk them feeling deprived while their classmates whose families are less politically cautious still receive them? Do you continue the practice privately and risk being labeled politically unreliable? The calculation is genuinely stressful. What actually happens is that Hongbao goes underground. You're still giving red envelopes to your kids, but you're doing it quietly, within the family, without any public display. The amounts shrink dramatically, partly because everyone's income has been equalized downward under socialism, partly because giving large amounts attracts attention. You're wrapping a few yuan in red paper, nothing elaborate, calling it a small New Year gift rather than using traditional terminology. The demon protection stories are definitely not mentioned because that's exactly the kind of superstition the government is trying to eliminate. In rural areas, the tradition proves even more resilient. You're a farming family in a village where the Communist Party's reach is less total than in cities. The local cadres might be party members, but they're also your neighbors and relatives, and they're not particularly interested in enforcing cultural prohibitions that would make them unpopular. So Hongbao continues in rural China much more openly than in urban centers, creating interesting regional variations in how the tradition survives. The Cultural Revolution, starting in 1966, takes everything to an extreme. You're now living through a period where traditional culture is being actively destroyed. Red Guards are smashing temples, burning old books, humiliating anyone associated with old customs, old culture, old habits, old ideas. And Hongbao is definitely old. You'd have to be either very brave or very foolish to openly give red envelopes during the height of the Cultural Revolution. But here's what historians have documented. Even during the Cultural Revolution's worst years, Hongbao didn't completely disappear. You're just incredibly careful about it. Families give money to children, but without the red envelope, claiming it's practical financial support for school expenses or necessities. Or they give red envelopes, but call them something else, stripping away the traditional terminology. The practice survives by disguising itself as something politically acceptable. Some families develop elaborate codes. You're giving your child money for revolutionary textbooks, with a knowing wink that everyone understands means it's really Hongbao. Or you're wrapping money in red paper but claiming it's because red is the color of the revolution, not because of traditional lucky color symbolism. It's cultural camouflage, and it works because even zealous red guards aren't monitoring every private family interaction. The amounts during this period are genuinely tiny by historical standards. You're living in an era of enforced poverty where nobody's supposed to have extra money anyway. A Hongbao might contain the equivalent of buying a few pieces of candy or a small toy, but the symbolic act remains important precisely because it's one of the few traditional practices families can maintain despite overwhelming political pressure to abandon everything from the past. Here's something scholars still debate. Did the communist suppression of Hongbao actually strengthen its symbolic importance? There's an argument that when a practice is forbidden or discouraged, maintaining it becomes an act of identity preservation. You're not just giving your child money, you're asserting that your family's cultural heritage matters despite what the government says. The Hongbao becomes infused with meaning beyond its original purpose. In overseas Chinese communities, meanwhile, the tradition flourishes. You're living in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, or Chinatowns across the Americas, and there's no communist party telling you to abandon traditional practices. If anything, being cut off from mainland China makes preserving these traditions feel more important. The Hongbao practice in these diaspora communities actually becomes more elaborate during this period, partly as a statement of cultural identity in contrast to the communist mainland. This creates a weird divergence. By the 1970s, you've got mainland Chinese families giving tiny, concealed Hongbao in secret, while overseas, Chinese families are giving increasingly lavish red envelopes as part of public New Year celebrations. The same tradition is evolving in completely opposite directions based on political context. When mainland China eventually opens up, this divergence will create interesting tensions about what the authentic tradition looks like. The death of Mao in 1976 and the gradual reforms afterward create space for traditional practices to re-emerge. You're living through the late 1970s and there's a subtle relaxation of cultural prohibitions. Hongbao starts becoming more visible again, though people are still cautious. You're testing boundaries, giving slightly larger amounts, using actual red envelopes again instead of plain paper, mentioning the practice by name rather than using euphemisms. What's remarkable is how quickly the knowledge of proper Hongbao etiquette returns once it's permitted again. You'd think after decades of suppression, people would have forgotten the rules about appropriate amounts, who gives to whom, the significance of numbers. But that information was preserved within families, passed down quietly from grandparents to parents to children. The tradition was dormant, not dead. By the early 1980s, you're witnessing the Hongbao tradition staging a full comeback. It's not just tolerated. It's becoming actively celebrated again as part of Chinese cultural heritage. The government's position has completely reversed. Now they're promoting traditional festivals and customs as part of national identity. And Hongbao is suddenly a wholesome family tradition rather than feudal superstition. The political whiplash is stunning. Here's the weird legacy of this suppression period. It created a generation gap in Hongbao practice. You're a young adult in the 1980s whose parents barely gave you Hongbao during your childhood because it was too risky. Now you're supposed to give them to your own children, but you don't have direct experience with how it's done properly. There's a scramble to relearn etiquette rules from grandparents or from overseas relatives who maintain the tradition continuously. The communist period proves something important. You can suppress a cultural practice with massive state power, but actually eliminating it requires breaking the family unit itself. As long as families stayed intact and parents wanted to mark Chinese New Year with something special for their children, Hongbao survived in some form. The tradition bent under pressure but didn't break. And you're about to see what happens when that bent tradition suddenly has all restrictions removed and gets turbocharged by China's economic boom. You're living through the 1980s in China, and everything is opening up in ways that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Deng Xiaoping's economic reforms are transforming the country. Foreign investment is pouring in, private enterprise is suddenly allowed, and people are making real money for the first time in decades. And that Hongbao tradition that survived underground through the communist suppression, it's about to explode back into Chinese life with a vengeance. Let's set the scene properly. You're a family in Shenzhen or Guangzhou, one of the coastal cities benefiting earliest from reform and opening up. Your income has increased dramatically in just a few years. You've got money to spend, traditional practices are no longer politically dangerous, and there's this pent-up desire to celebrate Chinese New Year the way your grandparents described it. The Hongbao you're giving your children in 1985 contains more money than your parents gave you during your entire childhood combined. The amounts are genuinely shocking by recent historical standards. You're going from Hongbao containing maybe 5 or 10 yuan in the late 1970s to envelopes stuffed with 50, 100, or even several hundred yuan by the late 1980s. In a country where the average monthly wage might be 100 yuan, giving that much in a single red envelope is a massive statement. And everyone's doing it, trying to make up for lost time, celebrating newfound prosperity, showing their children that life is genuinely getting better. Here's where the psychology gets interesting. You're a parent who grew up during the Cultural Revolution, receiving almost nothing for Chinese New Year while being told traditional practices were backward and shameful. Now, you have the opportunity to give your own children something substantial, and you're overcompensating. This isn't just about money. It's about reclaiming cultural identity, demonstrating that your family has survived and prospered, making sure your kids have better childhoods than you did. The red envelope industry rebounds almost overnight. You're seeing stores selling elaborate Hongbao with gold embossing, traditional designs, zodiac animals, increasingly creative and colorful patterns. Companies that printed these envelopes before 1949 restart production. New manufacturers enter the market. There's genuine competition over who can design the most attractive, most auspicious red envelopes. What was a suppressed practice 5 years ago is now a booming commercial sector. Regional differences in Hongbao practices, which had been somewhat smoothed out during the communist period, start re-emerging with fascinating variations. You're in Hong Kong or Macau, places that never suppress the tradition, and you're watching mainland relatives trying to figure out current customs. The amounts mainlanders consider generous seem quaint to Hong Kong families who've been giving larger Hongbao for decades. There's cultural negotiation happening in real time about what appropriate amounts should be. Overseas Chinese visiting mainland relatives during this period create particularly interesting dynamics. You're a successful businessman from Singapore, returning to your ancestral village for Chinese New Year, and the Hongbao you give are in foreign currency, US dollars, Hong Kong dollars, Singapore dollars. These aren't just worth more in absolute terms, they're symbols of the outside world's prosperity. Families treasure these foreign currency Hongbao, not just for their value, but as talismans of potential future opportunities. The government's reversal on traditional practices is complete by the mid-1980s. You're now being told that customs like Hongbao are valuable cultural heritage that should be preserved and celebrated. State media runs features about the history and significance of red envelopes. Teachers who were supposed to discourage the practice 20 years ago are now collecting Hongbao from students' parents again. The whiplash is surreal if you're old enough to remember both eras. Here's something scholars have documented that's genuinely fascinating. The Hongbao tradition comes back, but with modifications influenced by those decades of suppression. You're not talking much about the demon sui or supernatural protection anymore. That still seems too superstitious. Instead, Hongbao is framed as about family love, cultural continuity, teaching children financial responsibility. The practice returns, but the justification has been permanently modernized. The one-child policy, which becomes strictly enforced during this period, has a huge impact on Hongbao economics. You're a child born in the 1980s, and you're the only grandchild in your family because of population control policies. Every adult relative's Hongbao budget that used to be split among multiple children is now concentrated entirely on you. Single children are receiving Hongbao hauls that would have been unimaginable in previous generations. This creates what some sociologists call the little emperor phenomenon, where children are showered with money and attention. Inflation is still a factor you're navigating. China's economy in the 1980s is growing rapidly, but not always smoothly. Prices fluctuate, currency reforms happen, and you're trying to figure out appropriate Hongbao amounts in an environment where reference points keep shifting. What seemed like a generous amount last year might seem stingy this year if inflation has been high. Families develop strategies of giving consistent percentages of their income rather than fixed amounts. The workplace Hongbao practice rebounds aggressively. You're working for a state-owned enterprise or increasingly for a private company, and employers are giving Hongbao to employees as New Year bonuses. This isn't the grudging minimal amount from earlier decades. Companies are competing for talent, and generous Hongbao are part of the compensation package. Employees compare amounts obsessively, and the size of your Hongbao from the boss becomes a public signal of your value to the organization. Banking becomes part of the Hongbao tradition in new ways. You're encouraging your children to deposit their Hongbao money in newly available savings accounts. Banks even create special programs targeting children's New Year money, offering premium interest rates or small gifts for opening accounts during the holiday period. The tradition that started as demon protection has become fully integrated into modern financial systems. Here's a detail that emerges during this period. The expectation that children will save rather than spend their Hongbao money creates interesting generational tensions. You're a kid who just received several hundred yuan, a fortune by your standards, and your parents immediately take it away for safekeeping in a bank account you can't access. The lesson about delayed gratification and saving is probably valuable, but it also fundamentally changes what receiving Hongbao feels like. You're getting money you can't actually use. Rural-urban migration, which accelerates during the 1980s, creates new Hongbao challenges. You're a migrant worker who's left your village to work in a coastal city's factory. Chinese New Year is when you return home, and there's enormous pressure to give generous Hongbao to prove your time away has been successful. Even if you've barely saved any money, you're giving Hongbao that suggest prosperity, because losing face in front of your home community is unthinkable. The amounts people give start diverging dramatically based on regional economic development. You're in wealthy Guangdong province, where Hongbao might contain hundreds of yuan, while a family in interior provinces might give 20 yuan and consider it generous. This regional inequality in Hongbao amounts reflects and reinforces broader economic disparities that reform policies are creating across China. By the end of the 1980s, you've got a Hongbao tradition that's been completely revitalized, but also fundamentally transformed. It's more commercialized, more tied to displays of economic success, more integrated with modern banking and financial systems. The red envelope has successfully made the transition from suppressed traditional practice to celebrated part of China's economic miracle narrative, and the amounts are only going to get bigger from here. You're living in early 2014, holding a smartphone, and you're about to witness the exact moment that a 2,000-year-old tradition collides with Silicon Valley-style tech innovation. This is the year WeChat China's dominant messaging app, launches digital Hongbao. And it's not an exaggeration to say this single feature will change Chinese New Year forever and transform how hundreds of millions of people interact with money, technology, and each other. Let's set the context. You're one of the roughly 400 million people using WeChat by early 2014. It's already essential to your daily life. You message friends, follow news, pay bills, book taxis. Tencent, the company behind WeChat, is locked in fierce competition with Alibaba's Alipay for dominance in China's mobile payment market. And they're looking for a killer feature that will get people to actually link their bank accounts to WeChat Pay, which most users haven't bothered doing yet. Some product manager at Tencent has a genuinely brilliant idea. What if we digitize Hongbao? What if instead of physically handing someone a red envelope with cash, you could send it through WeChat? It sounds simple, almost obvious in retrospect. But you're about to see how this seemingly straightforward digitization triggers network effects that nobody fully anticipated. WeChat launches the digital Hongbao feature right before Chinese New Year in 2014. You can now send money to individual friends or into group chats wrapped in a virtual red envelope design. Recipients tap the envelope on their screen. It opens with a satisfying animation, and the money transfers directly into their WeChat wallet. The first time you do this, it feels slightly weird. You're sending money but also kind of playing a game. The interface is deliberately playful, with animations and sound effects that make a financial transaction feel festive and fun. But here's where Tencent's product designers show their genius. They add a feature called Lucky Money, or random red packets. You're sending one Hongbao to a group chat, but instead of everyone getting the same amount, the total sum is randomly distributed among whoever opens it first. You might send 100 wen split among 10 people, and the amounts could be anything from 0.01 wen to 50 wen, depending on the randomization algorithm. It turns receiving Hongbao into a lottery, a game of chance that's genuinely exciting. The psychology here is absolutely brilliant. You're sitting with your phone during Chinese New Year's Eve, and group chats start lighting up with red envelope notifications. But there's a time pressure. Only the first X number of people to tap the envelope get money, and it's first come, first served. You're suddenly frantically checking your phone, scared to miss out. The fear of missing out, FOMO, is weaponized and turned into engagement with the app. What happens next is genuinely stunning from a business perspective. In just the first 2 days of Chinese New Year 2014, over 5 million people send 20 million digital Hongbao through WeChat. But more importantly, over 5 million users link their bank accounts to WeChat Pay to participate. Tencent has just solved their biggest user adoption challenge not through advertising or incentives, but by gamifying a beloved cultural tradition. You're experiencing what will later be called the WeChat red envelope moment, when a massive portion of China's population suddenly starts using mobile payments, not for commerce, but for social gifting. This is the inflection point. Within weeks, using WeChat Pay for everyday transactions becomes normal because everyone's already linked their bank account for Hongbao purposes. Tencent has effectively turned Chinese New Year into an onboarding mechanism for their entire financial ecosystem. The social dynamics of digital Hongbao are fascinating and sometimes uncomfortable. You're in a work group chat and your boss sends a red packet. The app shows exactly who grabbed what amount and how fast they responded. It becomes a public performance of enthusiasm and loyalty. Responding too slowly might suggest you're not dedicated. Responding too fast might seem desperate. The pressure to be online and constantly monitoring group chats during Chinese New Year becomes overwhelming. Family group chats become particularly interesting spaces. You're digitally connected to relatives you rarely see in person, and a digital Hongbao creates new social obligations. Your aunt in Australia sends a red packet to the family chat at 3 a.m. your time because it's afternoon there. Do you wait until morning to claim it? Do you set an alarm? The tradition that used to happen face-to-face during annual visits now happens 24/7 across time zones, and nobody's figured out the proper etiquette yet. Here's something that emerges almost immediately. The amounts in digital Hongbao are often smaller than traditional physical ones, but the frequency is much higher. You're receiving tiny amounts, maybe 5 yuan, 10 yuan, sometimes just 0.88 yuan for the lucky number, but you're receiving them constantly from multiple group chats. Over the entire New Year period, the total might exceed what you'd get from physical Hongbao, but it's spread across hundreds of microtransactions. The experience of receiving feels fundamentally different. The randomization feature creates genuinely addictive behavior. You're competing with friends and family to see who can grab the biggest share from each red packet. Some people develop strategies. They claim being on certain Wi-Fi networks is faster, or that specific phone models have slight advantages in processing speed. It's probably mostly superstition, but the competitive element makes digital Hongbao feel more like mobile gaming than traditional gift-giving. Scholars studying this phenomenon notice something interesting. Digital Hongbao actually increases the total amount of money circulating during Chinese New Year. You're sending more red envelopes to more people because the friction of doing so has dropped to nearly zero. In the physical world, you'd only give Hongbao to people you actually saw. In the digital world, you're sending them to hundreds of contacts, including people you barely know, and they're reciprocating. The tradition expands dramatically in scale even as individual amounts decrease. The feature is so successful that it genuinely threatens Alipay's market dominance. You're watching Alibaba scramble to launch their own digital Hongbao feature within weeks, trying to compete. But WeChat has first-mover advantage during the crucial holiday period, and the network effects are already kicking in. Everyone's using WeChat's version, so that's where you send and receive Hongbao, which reinforces WeChat's dominance. There's something slightly melancholic about this transition that some users feel even as they participate enthusiastically. You're no longer physically handing red envelopes to children, watching their faces light up, having that moment of personal connection. Instead, you're tapping a screen and watching an animation. The tradition survives, but the embodied face-to-face aspect has been abstracted into digital interface. Some grandparents continue giving physical Hongbao specifically to preserve that tangible interaction, while also participating in the digital version. The data privacy implications are enormous, though most users don't think about this. You're generating detailed records of your social network, your financial capacity, your online behavior patterns, all through digital Hongbao exchanges. Tencent now has incredibly valuable data about social relationships and money flows across hundreds of millions of users. This information is worth far more than the transaction fees they're collecting. By the end of Chinese New Year 2014, digital Hongbao has become an established part of the holiday tradition. It's no longer a novelty, it's expected. You're judged by your participation in the digital Hongbao economy. Not sending any makes you seem cheap or disconnected. The tradition has successfully made the leap from physical to digital, and there's no going back. What nobody fully realizes yet is that this is just the beginning. Digital Hongbao will continue evolving in directions nobody in 2014 can anticipate, growing into a phenomenon that encompasses gaming, marketing, social media, and commerce in increasingly elaborate ways. You're living through Chinese New Year 2015, and what happened last year with WeChat's digital Hongbao wasn't a one-time novelty. It was the opening salvo in what's about to become the most expensive corporate war, fought with free money. Alibaba and Tencent, China's two tech titans, are about to turn Chinese New Year into their personal battlefield, and you're the soldier they're trying to win over with literal cash bombs. Let's talk about what Alibaba does in response to getting absolutely destroyed by WeChat in 2014. You're watching them prepare for Chinese New Year 2015 like it's D-Day. They partner with China Central Television, CCTV, to sponsor the annual New Year's Gala, which is basically China's Super Bowl. Over 800 million people watch this program, and Alibaba has a plan. During the broadcast, viewers can shake their phones to enter draws for digital Hongbao distributed through Alipay. The scale is absurd. Alibaba commits to giving away 600 million yuan, nearly $100 million in digital Hongbao during a single evening. You're sitting with your family watching the gala, and every few minutes the hosts announce it's time to shake your phone. You're literally shaking your smartphone like a madman along with hundreds of millions of other people, hoping to win random amounts. The servers nearly crash from the traffic. In just 8 hours, Alipay processes 2.1 billion shake interactions. 2.1 billion. Here's what's actually happening beneath this seemingly generous giveaway. Alibaba is buying users. Every person who participates needs to have Alipay installed and a bank account linked. The cost per user acquisition is phenomenal from a marketing perspective. They're spending less than $1 per new user who's now actively engaged with their mobile payment platform. Tencent's CFO later calls this attack a Pearl Harbor moment, which is both dramatic and kind of accurate. But Tencent isn't sitting idle. You're watching them double down on what worked in 2014. WeChat integrates Hongbao functionality deeper into the app, making it easier to send, more fun to receive, adding new features like Hongbao that can only be opened at specific times or in specific locations. They're turning Chinese New Year into an augmented reality game where the prize is actual money. The amounts these companies are giving away escalate year after year. By 2016, you're looking at billions of yuan being distributed during Chinese New Year. These tech giants are essentially subsidizing the entire tradition, making it financially possible for users to send far more Hongbao than they normally would because they're recycling money they won from corporate-sponsored red packets. It's a closed-loop system where companies inject cash, users circulate it among themselves, and everyone's engagement with the platforms increases exponentially. What's genuinely fascinating from a behavioral economics perspective is how this gamification affects your brain. You're not just receiving money, you're experiencing variable reward schedules, the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Sometimes you open a digital Hongbao and get 0.01 yuan. Sometimes you get 50 yen. The unpredictability triggers dopamine release. You're basically playing a lottery where every ticket is free and sometimes you win, and your brain absolutely loves this. The social pressure intensifies dramatically. You're now expected to participate in corporate Hongbao campaigns as a kind of social activity. Your group chats are coordinating to all shake phones simultaneously during CCTV broadcasts. Missing out means you're not part of the collective experience, which in group-oriented Chinese culture is genuinely uncomfortable. The companies have successfully made their marketing campaigns into mandatory social participation. Here's where things get darker. The amount of time people spend on their phones during Chinese New Year, traditionally a holiday for family togetherness, skyrockets. You're at the reunion dinner, arguably the most important family meal of the year, and everyone's staring at their phones, waiting for the next Hongbao notification. Grandparents who don't have smartphones feel excluded. There are genuine arguments about whether this is destroying the holiday's meaning or evolving it for a digital age. Scholars are still debating this. The competition between Alibaba and Tencent creates innovations nobody anticipated. You're seeing Hongbao that unlock when multiple people open them simultaneously, encouraging real-time coordination. Hongbao that contain coupons or discount codes instead of cash, turning gift-giving into commerce. Hongbao that can only be opened by walking to specific physical locations, gamifying the tradition with geolocation technology. Every year brings new features as the companies try to out-innovate each other. The data these companies collect becomes incredibly sophisticated. You're generating information about when you're most active online, who you interact with most frequently, how quickly you respond to notifications, what amounts make you feel rewarded enough to keep participating. This behavioral data is worth far more than the money they're giving away. They're essentially paying you to provide detailed information about your psychology and social network. Other companies start getting into the game. You're receiving sponsored Hongbao from brands trying to get visibility during Chinese New Year. E-commerce platforms, ride-sharing apps, food delivery services. Everyone's distributing digital red packets as marketing. The tradition becomes thoroughly commercialized. Some of these corporate Hongbao contain tiny amounts but require you to complete tasks. Watch an advertisement, download an app, make a purchase. The line between gift and advertisement blurs completely. There's a generational divide in how people experience this. You're a young person who finds the gamified digital Hongbao genuinely fun and engaging. Your parents participate because they feel obligated and don't want to seem out of touch. Your grandparents might not participate at all or only do so with help from younger family members. The tradition that used to unify families across generations now highlights technological divides. The amounts in purely social Hongbao, ones not subsidized by corporations, start declining slightly. You're sending more red packets to more people, but each individual one contains less money. The total you're spending might be the same, but it's distributed across hundreds of microtransactions. Some people complain this makes the gesture feel less meaningful, while others argue it's more democratic and inclusive. Here's something that emerges and becomes genuinely problematic: Hongbao addiction. You're checking your phone compulsively during the entire New Year period, unable to focus on conversations or activities because you might miss a red packet notification. Some people develop genuinely unhealthy relationships with the practice, staying up all night to catch Hongbao in different time zones, neglecting work and family to maximize their earnings. It's a small percentage of users, but it's real enough that Chinese media starts running concerned features about it. The government starts paying attention too. You're looking at massive amounts of money flowing through these platforms with relatively little regulatory oversight. In 2016, the People's Bank of China issues guidance requiring all digital payment platforms to verify user identities and monitor transactions for money laundering. The freewheeling early days of digital Hongbao start facing regulatory constraints. Despite, or maybe because of all this commercialization and gamification, the total amount of money exchanged through digital Hongbao during Chinese New Year continues growing exponentially. By 2016, WeChat alone reports 32 billion red packets sent during the holiday period. Billion, with a B. The scale is so enormous that it represents a genuine shift in how Chinese culture experiences gift-giving, money, and social obligation. You're witnessing a tradition that survived demons, dynasties, revolutions, and suppressions, now being transformed more radically by smartphone apps than by anything in its previous 2 millennia. And you're not entirely sure whether what's happening is evolution or extinction. You're tapping your phone screen at 11:59 p.m. on Chinese New Year's Eve, your thumb hovering over the WeChat group chat, absolutely ready to pounce the second a red packet notification appears. Your heart rate is genuinely elevated. You're competing against your cousins, your co-workers, random acquaintances, and you desperately want to be the one who grabs the biggest random amount. And here's the uncomfortable question. When did checking your bank balance become a competitive sport? And why does winning 8.88 yuan feel better than receiving a 100 yuan traditional Hongbao from your grandmother? Let's talk about what these tech companies have actually done to your brain. You're experiencing what psychologists call a variable ratio reinforcement schedule, the most addictive type of reward system ever discovered. It's the same mechanism casinos use in slot machines. You don't know when the next Hongbao will appear. You don't know how much it'll contain. You don't know if you'll be fast enough to claim it. This uncertainty is neurologically intoxicating. Your brain releases dopamine not when you actually get the reward, but in anticipation of potentially getting it. The genius of the design is that failure doesn't discourage you. It makes you more determined to try again. You're opening a red packet and getting 0.37 yuan while your friend got 23 yuan from the same packet. That's not frustrating enough to make you quit. It's frustrating enough to make you hyper-alert for the next opportunity to win. You're caught in a loop where each small loss makes you more invested in the next potential win. Behavioral economists have studied this exact pattern in gambling addiction. Here's what's happening in your group chats throughout Chinese New Year. You're in multiple conversations: family, friends, co-workers, hobby groups, school alumni, and each one becomes a separate arena for Hongbao competition. The moment a red packet appears, you've got maybe 3 to 5 seconds before all the money is claimed. You're developing genuinely absurd reflexes, like athletes training for competition. Some people claim they can recognize the specific vibration pattern of a Hongbao notification versus a regular message. The randomization algorithm itself becomes a subject of obsessive analysis. You're reading articles and forum posts theorizing about the best time to claim a Hongbao to maximize your amount. Some people swear the first claimant gets less on average to encourage more people to participate. Others argue the last person gets the remaining amount, which could be huge or tiny. Tencent and Alibaba never reveal the actual algorithm. So you're operating on superstition and anecdotal evidence, which somehow makes it more compelling. The social comparison aspect is brutal. You're not just receiving money, you're seeing exactly what everyone else received. The app displays a leaderboard showing who got the biggest amount from each red packet. You're a competitive person, and losing to your little cousin who grabbed 15.67 yuan while you got 2.14 yuan is genuinely annoying, even though you rationally know it's completely random. The public nature of the results transforms a gift into a competition. Here's where the psychology gets really interesting. The amounts are usually small, often under 10 yuan. But your emotional response is disproportionate to the actual value. You're feeling genuine excitement about winning the equivalent of $1.50 USD. In any other context, you'd barely notice that amount. But the gamification, the social comparison, the uncertainty, and the festive context combine to make these tiny sums feel enormously significant. Your brain is being hacked. The fear of missing out reaches pathological levels during Chinese New Year. You're sleeping with your phone next to your pillow, notifications on full volume because Hongbao might drop at 3 a.m. in a group chat with people in different time zones. You're waking up multiple times during the night to check. You're unable to focus on conversations because you're constantly monitoring your screen for that red notification. It's genuinely interfering with your ability to be present during what's supposed to be a holiday about family connection. Some companies exploit this psychology in increasingly sophisticated ways. You're seeing red packets that require you to watch a 30-second advertisement before you can claim them. By the time you've watched the ad, you're psychologically committed. You've invested time, so you're definitely going to complete the action and claim your reward, even if it's 0.01 yuan. They've successfully monetized your attention by leveraging your FOMO and the sunk cost fallacy simultaneously. The split-second timing creates interesting technological dynamics. You're convinced that having the newest phone with the fastest processor gives you an advantage. People upgrade their devices partially to gain a competitive edge in Hongbao claiming. This is almost certainly mostly placebo effect. Network latency probably matters more than device speed, but the belief drives actual consumer behavior. Tech companies accidentally benefit from the Hongbao arms race. Here's something genuinely concerning that researchers have documented. The dopamine hit from digital Hongbao can actually reduce the emotional impact of traditional gift giving. You're receiving a physical red envelope from your grandfather containing 200 yuan, objectively more valuable than anything you've won digitally. But it feels less exciting because there's no uncertainty, no competition, no immediate gratification. The steady drip of small digital rewards is neurologically recalibrating your reward expectations. the group chat dynamics create complex social pressures. You're in a work group with your boss and colleagues, and the boss sends a 100 red packet to be split randomly among 20 people. Everyone claims their share, and the amounts are public. Do you thank the boss privately? In the group chat, do you acknowledge you got a small amount with humor or just stay silent? There's no established etiquette, so every interaction becomes a potential social misstep. Some people develop genuinely problematic relationships with digital Hongbao. You're staying up for 72 hours straight during the New Year holiday, surviving on energy drinks, obsessively participating in every corporate promotion and group chat red packet, trying to maximize earnings. There are documented cases of people treating this as serious income supplementation rather than playful tradition, and the gamification has created what's essentially micro-gambling that some users can't regulate. The irony is that most people are roughly breaking even financially. You're sending out as much in Hongbao as you're receiving, maybe more when you account for the social pressure to reciprocate. The corporate-sponsored ones provide net positive value, but those subsidies are buying your attention, your data, your engagement. You're not actually getting rich off digital Hongbao. You're providing value to platforms in exchange for the dopamine hit of intermittent rewards. Behavioral scientists studying this phenomenon note that it's created one of the largest real-world experiments in gamification and behavioral modification ever conducted. You're part of a population of hundreds of millions being simultaneously conditioned to associate social interaction with financial microtransactions, to check phones compulsively, to experience monetary exchanges as entertainment. The long-term psychological effects are still unknown because this has only existed for a few years. There's also emerging research about how digital Hongbao affects children's relationship with money. You're a kid receiving dozens of tiny digital payments throughout Chinese New Year, watching adults compete obsessively over random amounts, learning that money is something you win through fast reflexes rather than something you earn through work or receive through genuine generosity. The lessons being internalized are probably not what parents intend. By the late 2000s, you're seeing think pieces and social media posts criticizing the Hongbao madness, people declaring they're opting out, families establishing no phones at dinner rules specifically to combat the compulsive checking. But the social pressure to participate remains enormous. Not engaging means missing out on shared experiences, inside jokes, social bonding that's happening through these digital exchanges. You're caught between understanding intellectually that you're being manipulated by carefully designed psychological triggers and being unable to resist participating anyway because everyone else is doing it, and it is genuinely kind of fun despite everything. Your brain knows it's being hacked. Your brain doesn't care. Your thumb keeps tapping that screen. You're sitting at your desk in early January, and Chinese New Year is approaching, which means you're about to enter the most socially treacherous minefield of the entire year. You need to figure out exactly how much money to put in Hongbao for your boss's 7-year-old kid whom you've met exactly once, your college roommate's new baby, your hairdresser who's been cutting your hair for 3 years, your second cousin twice removed who just got married, and approximately 40 other people whose expectations you can somehow simultaneously exceed and disappoint. Welcome to modern Hongbao etiquette, where the rules are completely unwritten, regionally variable, relationship dependent, financially significant, and absolutely mandatory to get right. And getting it wrong can damage relationships, harm your career, or brand you as either cheap or show-offy for the next 12 months. No pressure. Let's start with the most anxiety-inducing category, workplace Hongbao. You're navigating multiple contradictory obligations simultaneously. If you have subordinates, you're expected to give them Hongbao. This is basically mandatory if you're their direct supervisor, but the amounts can't be equal because that would ignore hierarchy and individual performance. You need to calibrate amounts to signal who you value most while not making anyone feel devalued enough to start job hunting. It's an annual performance review conducted through red envelopes. Then there's your boss's children. You're theoretically giving these Hongbao to the kids, but everyone knows it's actually a gesture toward your boss. Too little, and you seem disrespectful or cheap. Too much, and it might be interpreted as brown-nosing or even attempted bribery depending on your industry and company culture. The sweet spot is somewhere around notably generous but not suspiciously so, which is incredibly difficult to calculate. Some people actually consult with trusted colleagues about appropriate amounts like they're preparing for diplomatic negotiations. Here's where it gets genuinely complicated. You need to consider not just your relationship to each person, but also their financial situation relative to yours. You're a successful tech worker giving Hongbao to your cousin who's a teacher in a rural area. If you give too much, you're potentially embarrassing them because they can't reciprocate at that level. If you give too little relative to your obvious means, you seem cheap or uncaring. You're trying to hit this impossible target of generous within the bounds of relational equity. The numbers themselves carry meanings you need to navigate. You're never giving amounts with 4 in them because 4 sounds like death. So 40, 140, 400 yuan are all absolutely off limits. 8 is lucky. So amounts like 88, 188, 288 are popular, but they're so popular that they might seem unimaginative. 6 is smooth, so 66, 166, 666 work well. 9 is long-lasting, making 99, 199, 999 good choices. But you also can't be too obviously chasing lucky numbers because that seems superstitious and unsophisticated. You're solving a numerical puzzle with cultural, financial, and social variables. Generational differences create their own challenges. You're giving to your grandmother, who thinks 20 wen is generous because that's what people gave in her day adjusted for inflation in her mind. You're also giving to your 8-year-old nephew who's been receiving 500 wen Hongbao from his wealthy aunt and now considers anything under 200 wen disappointing. How do you navigate these completely different expectation frameworks within the same family? The digital versus physical Hongbao decision is fraught. You're close with someone, and giving them a digital Hongbao seems impersonal and lazy, like you couldn't be bothered to see them in person. But you're far away, or have hundreds of people to give to, and physical Hongbao are logistically impossible. Some relationships require both. A digital Hongbao for convenience and a physical one when you eventually meet to show you made the real effort. You're essentially giving twice to satisfy both modern convenience and traditional expectations. Here's a scenario that genuinely happens. You're in a family group chat and someone sends a digital Hongbao to everyone. You claim your share. Let's say you get 15 yuan. Do you send a Hongbao back? If so, how much? The same amount seems like exactly reciprocating, which might be either appropriate or weirdly transactional depending on your relationship. More seems competitive. Less seems cheap. Not reciprocating might seem ungrateful. There's no clear answer, and every year people agonize over this. The married versus unmarried divide creates interesting dynamics. You're married, which means you've crossed a threshold and are now officially an adult who gives Hongbao rather than receives them. But your unmarried friend who's the same age and actually makes more money than you is still receiving Hongbao from relatives. The tradition creates these odd situations where life stage matters more than age or financial capacity, and both of you feel awkward about the imbalance. Children's expectations have inflated wildly in recent decades. You're a parent trying to explain to your child why they should be grateful for the 50 wen Hongbao from their elderly great-aunt who lives on a small pension, when their classmates are bragging about receiving thousands of yuan total during the holiday. You're trying to teach gratitude and financial perspective while also not wanting your kid to feel poor or less valued than their peers. It's genuinely difficult. The etiquette around opening Hongbao remains important, but has weird inconsistencies. You're absolutely not supposed to open physical Hongbao in front of the giver. That's considered greedy and rude. But digital Hongbao appear on screen showing exactly what everyone received, creating public comparisons the tradition was supposedly designed to avoid. The same culture that considers physically opening an envelope tactless has completely embraced digitally displaying amounts. The contradiction is rarely acknowledged. Corporate gifting has created entirely new etiquette challenges. You're a business owner, and clients are giving you Hongbao for your children as part of relationship maintenance. Is this a genuine gift, or is it functionally a business payment disguised as cultural tradition? Do you reciprocate? If you don't have children, does the absence of kids mean you lose out on this entire channel of relationship building? Some companies actually have internal policies about whether employees can accept client Hongbao. There's also the question of what counts as appropriate Hongbao giving age for children. You're wondering if your 3-month-old baby should be receiving Hongbao, and different relatives have different opinions. Some say newborns absolutely get Hongbao because they're new family members. Others say kids should only get Hongbao once they can understand and appreciate them. You're caught between not wanting to deprive your child and not wanting to seem like you're using your baby as a Hongbao collection device. The amounts have experienced such dramatic inflation that older relatives are genuinely shocked. You're giving your nephew 200 yuan, and your mother is horrified because in her day, that would be an entire month's wages. You're trying to explain that 200 yuan now is roughly equivalent to what she gave in the 1980s after adjusting for inflation and living costs. But she remains convinced young people today are being spoiled with absurdly generous Hongbao. The generational disconnect is real. Here's something that creates genuine anxiety. The group size problem. You're in a WeChat group with 200 people and someone sends a Hongbao. If you send one back to the whole group at equivalent total value, you're spending way more than you received. If you don't reciprocate, you seem cheap. The mathematics don't work, but the social pressure exists anyway. Some people just avoid claiming Hongbao from large groups to avoid the reciprocation dilemma. Single people face particular pressures. You're unmarried and theoretically still supposed to receive Hongbao according to tradition, but you're also 35 years old with a successful career. Accepting Hongbao from relatives feels increasingly uncomfortable and infantilizing, but refusing them might offend people who are following traditional practices. You're stuck between respecting the tradition and asserting your adult status. Scholars studying modern Hongbao etiquette note that the anxiety around getting it right has possibly never been higher. You've got traditional rules colliding with digital practices, regional variations, encountering national mobility, economic inequality, creating uncomfortable comparisons, and generational differences in expectations. Every Hongbao exchange is a delicate negotiation of multiple competing values and concerns. And you're doing all these calculations while also trying to actually enjoy Chinese New Year. Connect with family, and remember that this tradition is supposedly about expressing warmth and good wishes rather than conducting elaborate social calculus to avoid embarrassment. But here you are, maintaining spreadsheets of who gave what to whom last year, checking group chat receipts to calibrate appropriate amounts, stress-eating dumplings while calculating whether 388 or 488 yuan is more appropriate for your new manager's daughter. The tradition survived demons, dynasties, and revolutions. Whether it can survive the etiquette anxiety of the smartphone era remains to be seen. You're standing in Singapore's Chinatown during Chinese New Year, and something fascinating is happening. You're watching non-Chinese Singaporeans, Malay, Indian, Western expats, shopping for red envelopes and asking shopkeepers about appropriate amounts to give to their Chinese colleagues' children. A tradition that started with ancient Chinese parents trying to protect their kids from demons has somehow become a multicultural phenomenon spanning continents, and the journey to get here is absolutely wild. Let's start with the obvious places. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, regions with large Chinese diaspora populations that maintain traditions even when mainland China was suppressing them. You're in these communities during the communist era, And Hongbao isn't just surviving, it's thriving and evolving in fascinating directions. These overseas Chinese communities become the tradition's preservation zones, keeping practices alive that mainland families could only maintain secretly. But here's where it gets interesting. Each diaspora community develops its own variations. You're in Hong Kong, and the Hongbao tradition has merged with British colonial influence to create unique hybrid practices. Companies give out Hongbao to employees, but call them Lai Si, using Cantonese pronunciation, and the practice has become so institutionalized that even British banks operating in Hong Kong distribute red envelopes to staff. The amounts tend to be more standardized than on the mainland, with common figures like 20, 50, or 100 Hong Kong dollars becoming semi-official standard amounts for different relationship categories. In Singapore and Malaysia, you're watching the tradition cross ethnic boundaries in ways that never happened in China. Your Malay neighbors give you Hongbao during Chinese New Year as a gesture of multicultural goodwill, and you reciprocate during Hari Raya with green envelopes containing money. Do it Raya. The traditions are parallel and mutually reinforcing. Non-Chinese bosses at multinational companies give Hongbao to their Chinese employees because it's expected in the local business culture. The practice has been divorced from its Chinese cultural context and absorbed into a broader regional gift-giving ecosystem. Now let's talk about Chinatowns globally. San Francisco, New York, London, Sydney, Vancouver. You're a second or third generation Chinese immigrant, and Hongbao becomes one of the few traditional practices your family still maintains. Your parents might not speak fluent Chinese, you might eat more pizza than dumplings, but during Chinese New Year, there are red envelopes. The tradition becomes a marker of ethnic identity, something that connects you to a cultural heritage you might otherwise feel distant from. The amounts in overseas communities create interesting dynamics. You're a Chinese-American family in San Francisco, and you're trying to figure out appropriate Hongbao amounts using US dollars, which don't have the same numerical symbolism as one. $8 feels weirdly small, but $80 might be excessive for a young child. Some families convert what they think appropriate yuan amounts would be based on exchange rates. Others just use culturally meaningful numbers regardless of currency. $88 because 8 is lucky, even though that's now a pretty substantial amount. Here's something fascinating. Overseas Chinese communities sometimes preserve older forms of the tradition that have been abandoned or modified on the mainland. You're visiting relatives in a Malaysian Chinese village, and they're still doing Hongbao practices that disappeared from China decades ago, like giving red envelopes to unmarried people regardless of age, or specific rituals around how envelopes are presented. These communities are living museums of historical practices. The internet and social media start creating a weird global standardization of Hongbao culture. You're seeing people in Chinese communities worldwide posting about their Hongbao halls on social media, comparing practices, creating meta-awareness of regional variations. Second-generation immigrants are learning about mainland Chinese Hongbao etiquette from viral videos and trying to incorporate those practices, creating reverse cultural flow. The tradition is becoming simultaneously more global and more self-consciously authentic. International businesses operating in China have to navigate Hongbao culture in hilarious ways. You're an American executive working in Shanghai, and you're receiving extensive cultural training about appropriate Hongbao practices. Do you give them to your Chinese staff? How much? Companies actually hire consultants to advise on these questions. Some foreign companies distribute Hongbao to all Chinese staff as a standardized bonus, which sort of misses the personal touch aspect, but avoids the nightmare of individual calculation. The digital Hongbao revolution actually helps globalize the tradition further. You're living in Toronto, and your relatives in Shanghai are sending you WeChat red packets during their Chinese New Year celebration, which you're receiving in real time despite the 12-hour time difference. The tradition has become deterritorialized. It exists in digital space rather than requiring physical presence. Chinese students studying abroad maintain connection to home partially through Hongbao exchanges in family group chats. Here's where cultural misunderstandings get entertaining. Non-Chinese people trying to participate in Hongbao culture sometimes get the etiquette spectacularly wrong. You're watching a Western colleague give a Chinese co-worker's child a red envelope containing exactly $4 because that's what they had in their wallet. The Chinese co-worker's frozen smile is painful to witness. Or someone gives a red envelope but writes their name on it, not realizing that's not typically done. These cross-cultural moments are awkward, but also kind of endearing. Different diaspora communities have different relationships to the Demon Sui origin story. You're in a progressive, educated Chinese-American family, and nobody mentions demons or supernatural protection. Hongbao is framed purely as cultural tradition and family bonding. But you're in a more traditional Malaysian Chinese family, and grandparents still tell children the Sui story and talk about the protective aspects. The same tradition carries different meanings in different communities. The amounts that count as generous vary wildly by location based on local cost of living and community wealth. You're comparing Hongbao practices in Shanghai, where 500 yuan is normal, Hong Kong, where 100 Hong Kong dollars is standard, San Francisco, where $50 is generous, and rural Malaysian Chinese communities where 20 ringgit is appropriate. These amounts aren't really comparable, but people try to compare them anyway, creating confusion and sometimes resentment. Academic researchers studying global Chinese diaspora communities note that Hongbao is one of the most resilient and widely maintained traditional practices, far outlasting things like language retention or other cultural habits. You're a third-generation Chinese Australian who doesn't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, barely knows anything about Chinese history. But you absolutely give Hongbao during Chinese New Year because that's what your family does. The tradition has become almost genetic. Global capitalism does what global capitalism does: commercialize everything. You're seeing international companies marketing Chinese New Year red envelope collections, with designs incorporating pandas, dragons, and other stereotypical Chinese imagery to appeal to overseas markets. The envelopes themselves become collectible items, with designer versions, limited editions, brand collaborations. What started as red paper has become a minor luxury goods category. The tradition influences non-Chinese cultures in unexpected ways. You're in Vietnam, and there's a similar red envelope tradition during Tet, Vietnamese New Year. In Korea, there's Sebet Don given during Lunar New Year. These practices existed independently but have cross-pollinated with Chinese Hongbao culture through shared regional celebration periods and cultural exchange. It becomes difficult to untangle what's distinctly Chinese versus broadly East Asian. Here's something genuinely touching. International adoptees from China often maintain Hongbao traditions even when raised in non-Chinese families. You're a Chinese child, adopted by American parents, and they research and implement Hongbao giving during Chinese New Year as a way to honor your heritage. The tradition becomes a bridge between birth culture and adoptive culture, a tangible practice that maintains connection to origins. The COVID-19 pandemic actually accelerates global digital Hongbao adoption. You're in 2020 and 2021, unable to travel internationally, unable to gather with extended family, and digital red packets become the primary way overseas Chinese communities maintain the tradition. Grandparents in Beijing send WeChat Hongbao to grandchildren in Sydney. The practice that started as demons fleeing from coins has become data packets traveling through undersea fiber optic cables. By the 2000s, you're watching Chinese New Year celebrations in major global cities. Sydney's Harbour, London's Trafalgar Square, New York's Times Square, and red envelopes are everywhere. Non-Chinese attendees participate. Companies distribute them as marketing. The tradition has become a recognized element of global multiculturalism. A practice that was specifically intensely Chinese for 2,000 years has become something else. A global phenomenon that maintains cultural specificity while also transcending it. You're witnessing a tradition that was almost destroyed by political suppression in its homeland, now thriving globally. Carried by diaspora communities, adopted by multicultural societies, digitized for cross-border transmission, and commercialized by international capitalism. And somehow, through all of these transformations, opening a red envelope, whether physical or digital, in Beijing or Buenos Aires, still feels like receiving a small piece of luck and familial love. You're scrolling through your phone in late January, and suddenly, every app you open is screaming about Chinese New Year Hongbao promotions. Your food delivery app is offering red envelopes if you order dumplings. Your ride-sharing app has a Hongbao lottery. Your coffee shop's loyalty program is distributing digital red packets. Even your fitness tracker is somehow involved, promising lucky money if you hit step goals during the holiday. A tradition that started with parents protecting children from demons has been hijacked by every corporation in China's digital economy, and it's both impressive and slightly horrifying. Let's talk about what happened when marketing departments discovered that Hongbao wasn't just a tradition, it was a mechanism for user engagement that could be weaponized for basically any commercial purpose imaginable. You're living in the late 2000s and early 2000s, and companies have realized that slapping Hongbao onto literally anything makes people interact with it. The word itself has become a Pavlovian trigger. See Hongbao, tap screen, receive dopamine hit. E-commerce platforms go absolutely wild with this. You're on Taobao or JD.com during Chinese New Year, and there are elaborate Hongbao games that would put casino loyalty programs to shame. You're collecting virtual items, completing daily tasks, inviting friends, watching product videos, all to unlock progressively larger red envelope rewards. Except the rewards are usually discount coupons that require you to spend money, so you're essentially working for the privilege of being marketed to. And it works. People spend hours playing these Hongbao collection games. Here's a particularly cynical innovation: the split Hongbao marketing mechanic. You're given a red envelope worth, say, 100 yuan, but it's split into pieces, and you can only claim the full amount by getting friends to also participate. So you're spamming your social networks with invitations to download apps or visit websites, effectively becoming an unpaid marketing agent in exchange for the promise of lucky money. Your social capital is being converted into corporate user acquisition at your own expense. Food delivery apps create Hongbao systems where you're encouraged to order during specific times to unlock red packets. You're not even hungry, but there's a notification saying a Hongbao will drop in 15 minutes if you place an order, and somehow you're ordering fried chicken at 10 p.m. because the fear of missing out overrides your rational decision-making. The tradition has been turned into a mechanism for creating artificial demand. Ride-sharing apps do similar things. You're taking rides you don't really need during Chinese New Year because each trip enters you into a Hongbao lottery. Didi and other platforms run promotions where drivers and passengers exchange digital red envelopes, gamifying the service and encouraging usage during what would normally be a slow period when people stay home with family. The tradition that was supposed to bring families together is now incentivizing people to leave their homes. Gaming companies integrate Hongbao mechanics into their products in genuinely creative ways. You're playing a mobile game, and during Chinese New Year, defeating monsters drops red envelopes containing in-game currency or rare items. The cultural tradition has been reskinned as a game mechanic. Some games create special New Year events where players compete for Hongbao prizes, turning the holiday into an esports competition. It's absurd, but also kind of brilliant from a design perspective. Live streaming platforms take this to another level entirely. You're watching a streamer, and they're distributing Hongbao to viewers who meet certain conditions. Subscribe to the channel, share the stream, purchase virtual gifts. The tradition becomes transactional entertainment, with viewers competing for the streamer's red packets while simultaneously paying the streamer through the platform's monetization system. Everyone's giving Hongbao to everyone in this weird circular economy where the platform takes a cut of everything. Social media apps create Hongbao campaigns that are essentially viral marketing schemes. You're on Weibo or Douyin, Chinese TikTok, and there are challenges where creating content with specific hashtags or participating in branded activities unlocks red envelope rewards. User-generated content is being incentivized through traditional cultural practices turned into marketing tools. Your creativity and social participation are being monetized by platforms using Hongbao as the psychological hook. Here's where it gets really cynical. Some companies create fake scarcity and urgency around their Hongbao promotions. You're receiving notifications that only 100 Hongbao remaining. But when you participate, more magically appear. Or you're told you have 60 seconds to claim a red packet, creating artificial panic that bypasses rational decision-making. These are manipulative dark pattern design techniques dressed up in the cheerful aesthetics of cultural tradition. Offline retailers get in on the action too. You're shopping at a mall during Chinese New Year, and making purchases unlocks digital Hongbao that can be used for future shopping. Or physical stores have QR codes you scan to enter Hongbao lotteries. The line between online and offline marketing dissolves, with Hongbao serving as the connective tissue. You're being tracked across multiple commercial environments through your participation in what's framed as festive tradition. Brand collaborations create bizarre mashups. You're seeing luxury brands, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Burberry, releasing limited edition red envelope designs as part of Chinese New Year marketing campaigns. These aren't functional envelopes you'd put money in. They're collectible items that cost more than the Hongbao amounts most people give. The tradition has been transformed into luxury goods signaling for wealthy consumers. Tech startups without obvious connections to Chinese New Year find ways to incorporate Hongbao anyway. You're using a language learning app, and completing lessons during the holiday period unlocks red packets. Or a meditation app distributes Hongbao for completing mindfulness exercises. The tradition has become so abstracted from its original meaning that it's just a generic reward mechanism that can be grafted onto literally any user activity. Financial services companies use Hongbao to drive adoption of investment products. You're receiving red envelopes that contain not cash, but coupons for fee-free trades or tiny amounts of cryptocurrency or vouchers for wealth management consultations. The tradition is being used to onboard users into financial products they might not otherwise consider. It's Hongbao as a loss leader for financial services upselling. Some campaigns are genuinely massive in scale. You're participating in a corporate Hongbao promotion where the company has committed to giving away tens of millions of yuan, and hundreds of millions of users are competing for shares. The mathematical reality is that most participants will receive essentially nothing, maybe 0.05 yuan. But the announcement of the huge total amount creates excitement that overrides the actual expected value calculation. Scholarly researchers studying this commercialization note that it represents one of the most successful corporate co-options of traditional culture in history. You've got practices that held deep familial and supernatural significance being repurposed as user engagement tactics by companies that have no connection to the tradition's origins. And rather than this causing cultural backlash, people enthusiastically participate because it's been gamified effectively enough that it feels fun rather than exploitative. There's also research into the demographic divide. You're a young, digitally native person who finds corporate Hongbao campaigns entertaining and engaging. Your parents participate, but feel vaguely uncomfortable about how commercial it's all become. Your grandparents might not participate in digital promotions at all, creating a generational split in how Chinese New Year is experienced. The tradition that used to unite families across age groups now sometimes highlights technological and cultural divides. Some companies try to add thin veneers of cultural authenticity to their Hongbao marketing. You're seeing campaigns that reference the Demon Sui story or use traditional artwork, attempting to create connections to the practice's origins even while fundamentally commercializing it. This performance of cultural respect while engaging in cultural exploitation creates interesting tensions that marketing executives apparently navigate without much self-awareness. By the mid-2000s, you're spending so much time during Chinese New Year participating in corporate Hongbao campaigns that you might actually interact with traditional family Hongbao less. The holiday has become partially about maximizing your earnings from app promotions rather than purely about familial connection. Some families even strategize together about which corporate campaigns to participate in, turning commercial exploitation into a weird form of family bonding activity. Consumer protection regulators occasionally step in when campaigns become too obviously exploitative. You're seeing fines levied against companies that advertised huge Hongbao rewards but made them nearly impossible to actually claim, or that collected user data without proper consent under the guise of festive participation. But enforcement is inconsistent, and new campaigns push boundaries every year. The question hanging over all of this: is this evolution or corruption? You're witnessing a tradition adapt to commercial digital environments in ways that maintain surface-level cultural references while fundamentally transforming the underlying meaning and practice. The red envelope persists, but it's become a skin applied to user acquisition funnels and engagement maximization algorithms. And somehow, hundreds of millions of people are fine with this, or at least participate anyway, because it is kind of fun to win tiny amounts of money from faceless corporations while tapping your phone compulsively. 2,000 years ago, parents wrapped coins in red paper to protect children from demons. Today, you're scanning QR codes at Starbucks to unlock red envelopes containing discount coupons for seasonal beverages. The tradition has traveled an absolutely wild distance. You're standing in 2026, holding your smartphone, and you're about to participate in Chinese New Year Hongbao exchanges that would seem like absolute science fiction to those ancient parents clutching copper coins. You're looking at augmented reality red packets that only appear when you point your camera at specific locations. Blockchain-verified Hongbao that create permanent records on distributed ledgers. AI-generated personalized New Year's messages accompanying each digital envelope. And somehow, this is all still recognizably connected to a tradition about scaring away a demon named Sui. Let's talk about where this is all heading, because the trajectory is genuinely fascinating. You're watching tech companies experiment with technologies that will define the next evolution of Hongbao. Virtual reality, Chinese New Year celebrations where you're wearing a headset and handing digital red envelopes to avatar representations of your relatives who live across the world. It sounds absurd, but pilot programs are already running. The tradition continues adapting to whatever technological medium exists. Cryptocurrency and blockchain have entered the Hongbao space in predictable ways. You're receiving red envelopes containing fractions of Bitcoin or Ethereum or various altcoins instead of yuan. Some families, particularly tech-savvy younger ones, see this as teaching children about digital assets and future finance. Others see it as unnecessarily complicating a tradition that should be simple and heartfelt. Either way, you're explaining to your grandmother that the Hongbao you just sent her grandson contains 0.0003 Bitcoin, and watching her try to understand what that means is both funny and slightly sad. NFT Hongbao became a brief but bizarre trend. You're in 2021 and 2022, and companies are creating limited edition digital red envelope designs as non-fungible tokens. The envelope itself is the gift rather than what's inside, and some of these digital artifacts sell for thousands of dollars to collectors who apparently have money to burn. The bubble mostly deflates, but it shows how willing people are to graft new technologies onto traditional practices, regardless of whether it makes any sense. Artificial intelligence is being integrated in ways that are simultaneously impressive and creepy. You're using apps that analyze your social network, income level, past Hongbao behavior, and relationship closeness to automatically suggest appropriate amounts for each person. The emotional labor of calculating proper Hongbao is being outsourced to algorithms. Some people find this helpful. Others find it depressing that AI is mediating what's supposed to be a personal expression of care and connection. Gamification continues escalating. You're participating in Chinese New Year Hongbao experiences that are full-fledged games with narrative progression, character development, and competitive leaderboards. Companies create elaborate alternate reality games where physical locations in cities contain hidden digital red packets, discoverable only through app-based treasure hunts. The tradition has merged completely with location-based gaming, turning entire cities into playgrounds during the holiday period. Biometric verification is entering the space for security reasons. You're opening digital Hongbao using facial recognition or fingerprint authentication to prevent fraud and ensure only intended recipients can claim money. This addresses real security concerns, but also means corporations are collecting biometric data tied to financial transactions during cultural celebrations. The privacy implications are significant, but rarely considered by excited participants. Social credit systems, both corporate and governmental, start intersecting with Hongbao culture in concerning ways. You're living in a future where your Hongbao generosity or participation in certain campaigns might affect your social credit score. Or platforms track your gifting behavior and use it to build detailed profiles about your relationships and financial capacity. The tradition becomes a massive data collection exercise disguised as festive celebration. Environmental concerns are starting to matter. You're aware that digital Hongbao have carbon footprints from the servers, processing billions of transactions. Some people advocate for returning to physical red envelopes as more environmentally sustainable, except the paper production also has environmental costs. Others promote carbon-neutral Hongbao, where a portion of the money goes to environmental offset programs. The tradition is being renegotiated through environmental consciousness. There's growing tension between authenticity and innovation. You're watching cultural commentators argue about whether digital Hongbao represent evolution of tradition or its destruction. Younger generations generally see continuous innovation as natural and exciting. Older generations sometimes feel the core meaning has been lost amid technological spectacle. This generational debate about cultural authenticity plays out in academic journals, social media arguments, and family dinner conversations. The amounts continue inflating in some segments while deflating in others. You're a wealthy urban professional giving your niece 2,000 wen in Hongbao, while your parents gave you 20 wen when you were her age. Adjusted for inflation and increased prosperity, both amounts represent similar gestures, but the absolute numbers are wild. Meanwhile, the proliferation of digital micro-Hongbao means people also regularly exchange 0.88 yuan red packets, amounts that are symbolically meaningful but financially trivial. Cross-border payment systems make international Hongbao exchanges seamless. You're sending red envelopes from New York to relatives in Shanghai with instant conversion between dollars and yuan at real-time exchange rates. The tradition that required physical proximity for its first 2,000 years now operates frictionlessly across continents and currencies. Geography has been completely overcome by technology. Some families develop hybrid practices that combine old and new. You're giving children physical red envelopes during in-person gatherings, but also sending digital Hongbao to the family group chat or giving traditional cash, Hongbao, but tracking everything in shared digital spreadsheets to maintain records. The tradition exists simultaneously in multiple forms, and different family members might prioritize different versions. Corporate Hongbao campaigns become more sophisticated in their psychological manipulation. You're seeing promotions that use machine learning to optimize exactly when to send you notifications, what amounts to display, which social proof signals to show, all calibrated to maximize your engagement. The platforms know more about what makes you click than you know about yourself. The tradition has become a petri dish for advanced behavioral manipulation techniques. Regulation is slowly catching up to technological innovation. You're watching governments implement rules about Hongbao-related data collection, advertising disclosures for corporate campaigns, age restrictions on participation in certain gamified Hongbao activities. The Wild West period of digital red packets is gradually being constrained by consumer protection laws and financial regulations, though enforcement remains inconsistent. Educational institutions are incorporating Hongbao into curriculums. You're a school child learning about traditional culture through apps that gamify Hongbao history, or studying mathematics using Hongbao amount calculations as practical examples. The tradition is being institutionalized and pedagogized, transformed from organic family practice into material for formal education. Mental health awareness is growing around compulsive Hongbao behavior. You're seeing support groups for people who've developed problematic relationships with digital red packet claiming, treatment programs for Hongbao addiction, therapy sessions dealing with anxiety around social gifting obligations. The tradition has real psychological costs for some people, and there's increasing recognition that this isn't purely harmless fun. Historians looking at this moment recognize we're living through one of the most rapid cultural transformations in human history. You're part of a generation experiencing a tradition that existed for 2 millennia in relatively stable form, suddenly mutating across just 10 years of smartphone adoption. The speed of change is unprecedented, and nobody really knows whether what emerges from this transformation will still meaningfully be called Hongbao in another generation. Your children or grandchildren might participate in Chinese New Year practices, so technologically mediated that physical red envelopes seem quaint and historical, like sending telegrams or using abacuses. Or there might be a backlash and return to simpler, more traditional forms as people tire of corporate manipulation and technological complexity. The future is genuinely uncertain. What's not uncertain is that humans have a deep need for traditions that mark time, strengthen social bonds, and create moments of generosity and connection. Whether those needs are met through physical red envelopes, digital transfers, blockchain tokens, or technologies not yet invented, the underlying human desires that sustained Hongbao for 2,000 years will persist. You're holding coins wrapped in red paper to protect children from demons. You're tapping a screen to send data representing money to digital representations of relatives. Somehow, impossibly, these are the same tradition. And somehow, despite everything, commercialization, gamification, technological transformation, there's still something genuinely meaningful about that red envelope, whatever form it takes. The Demon Sui probably never imagined its legacy would involve augmented reality and cryptocurrency, but traditions that survive 2,000 years do so by being endlessly adaptable while maintaining some core thread of meaning. And that thread, connection, generosity, luck, protection, love, hasn't broken yet. You're lying in bed now, phone finally set aside, the frenetic energy of Hongbao claiming and corporate promotions fading into memory. The red envelopes, physical ones sitting on your nightstand, digital ones accumulated in your WeChat wallet, represent such a strange journey. From ancient parents terrified of demons to modern users tapping screens for dopamine hits. From copper coins to cryptocurrency. From supernatural protection to corporate marketing campaigns. But maybe at its heart, Hongbao has always been about the same thing. Adults trying to give children something that will help them thrive, whether that's protection from evil spirits or financial assets or just the knowledge that they're valued and loved. The mechanisms change: red paper, smartphone screens, blockchain ledgers. But the gesture persists. Your breathing is slowing now, thoughts drifting. You're thinking about your own memories of Hongbao. The excitement of collecting red envelopes as a child, the anxiety of calculating appropriate amounts as an adult, the weird mix of genuine warmth and social obligation that characterizes the whole tradition. It's messy and complicated and commercial and heartfelt all at once, which is perhaps exactly how traditions survive across millennia, by being flexible enough to contain contradictions. Somewhere in China right now, a parent is tucking a red envelope under a child's pillow, maintaining a practice their ancestors performed for 2,000 years. Somewhere else, someone's frantically tapping their phone trying to claim the last Hongbao from a group chat. Both are participating in the same tradition, separated by centuries of evolution but connected by that thread of meaning. The demon Sui, if it ever existed, is long gone. But the Hongbao remains, shape-shifting across dynasties and technologies, surviving suppressions and commercializations, adapting to every new context while maintaining some essential core. It's a small tradition, really, just giving money in red envelopes. But small traditions, repeated year after year across generations, are how cultures persist and how meaning gets transmitted across time. Your thoughts are fragmenting now, sleep approaching, red envelopes floating through your mind, merging with dreams. The rustle of paper, the tap of screens, the excited voices of children, the concerned calculations of adults, all blending together into one long story that began with demons and coins and has no clear ending in sight. The lights are dim. The fan hums softly. The new year has begun, with all its promises of luck and prosperity and protection. The Hongbao have been exchanged, the traditions maintained, the connections affirmed, and you're drifting off, carrying with you this strange, resilient practice that has somehow survived everything history could throw at it. Sleep well. The demon won't get you tonight. The red envelopes have done their job, as they have for 2,000 years, and as they probably will for 2,000 more, whatever form they take.